Romance isn't a pageant of polished moments from a bygone era. It's a weathered but enduring thread that threads through kitchens and markets, rain-soaked streets, and quiet letters left on a wooden table. Tonight, we're venturing into 5 surprising myths about historical romance and showing how real love often blooms under ordinary skies, with patience as its best compass and hope as its quiet engine. Our first myth is big, bright, and almost cinematic. That historical romance happened only in opulent salons, surrounded by chandeliers and gossip worthy of the town crier. The truth, though, feels closer to the heartbeat of everyday life. Think of a village square at dusk, where a seamstress bats away the chill with a shawl, and a blacksmith wipes soot from his hands as he shares a stubborn joke with a neighbor. Think of a widow who earns a living weaving stories into fabric, and a young man who buys her a cup of bitter coffee just to hear her laugh. These tiny, stubborn acts, holding a door, offering a chair, acknowledging a person long ignored, become the quiet soil in which a romance can take root. It isn't the ballroom that confirms love's potential. It's the willingness to show up again, day after day, in the same doorway, with a steady kindness that makes loneliness shrink. And when 2 people discover they've grown attached not to fantasy but to the truth of one another, that attachment has a different kind of resilience, one that can weather debt, illness, famine, or rumor the way a fort withstands a storm. Myth 2 arrives with the shimmer of instant sparks, love at first sight. A single gaze that changes the entire course of a life. Carriages and cloaks can set a scene, but history teaches us another truth. Real connection often travels through hesitation, misreading, and letters that take a long winding road to arrive. A reader in a dusty garret might find a letter that smells faintly of ink and rain. A confession that arrives with the sting of fear and the sweetness of hope. The lovers read and reread those lines, learning to trust a voice they cannot see, discovering through careful words and patient listening that the bond was there all along, just waiting for time to reveal it. Slow burn isn't a failing of the past. It's the honest work of 2 people choosing to keep tending something delicate until it becomes unshakable. Imagine a morning where a shared umbrella becomes an argument softened by laughter, where a stubbornness finally folds into a shared plan. That's romance's real rhythm in history, a patient rhythm that grows stronger with every pause and every apology earned and offered again. Myth 3 insists history stripped women of agency, making romance a chorus led by men and sung. If we listen closely to the souvenirs of a past world, we hear something else, the small, steady acts of courage by women who refused to surrender their voice in matters of the heart. A letter hidden in a kitchen drawer. A decision to travel to a distant market on a day when the world seemed to tilt. A quiet negotiation with a wary ally to secure safety and respect for a budding relation. There's power in the way a woman's will bends toward protection, not domination. And in the way a shared dream becomes a mutual decision rather than a mere concession. The romances of history aren't merely about passion. They're about partnership, 2 people learning to trust one another, to negotiate space, to celebrate each other as strengths, even when society tells them to stay apart. When 2 lovers grow under the shade of old laws and newer understandings, romance becomes less about defiance and more about endurance. A promise kept in the face of pressure. A shelter built from shared kindness. Myth 4 claims that the spark in historical love faded quickly, consumed by social rules and the weight of tradition. The opposite is truer and far more hopeful. Passion often simmered beneath the surface, tucked away behind propriety, only to flare when rare moments allowed a breath of freedom. The scene isn't always a kiss in the rain. It's a quiet walk through a far-stretched corridor after a long day. A whispered plan for a future that requires patience and meticulous care. There are stories where a pair keeps a vow by stitching a garment, or by planting a garden behind a shared cottage, or by saving a coin to make a future possible. Tiny, stubborn choices that become the architecture of lasting affection. and when the world commands restraint. Romance learns to speak through small gestures, a shared loaf of bread, a repaired glove. A letter kept safe to remind a partner that they are seen, finally seen. The romance that endures learns to bend without breaking. To lean into the fear and come out the other side with a tenderness that feels almost inevitable in hindsight. Myth 5 proclaims that love in the past was a luxury only the rich could afford. A privilege of inheritance and status. In truth, historical romance has thrived wherever two people chose to persist in the face of odds. A farmer and a healer, a miller and a teacher. A shopkeeper and a seamstress, these were not fairy tale lovers born with a silver spoon but ordinary. People wearing ordinary clothes who learned to share a life in small, practical ways. The heart doesn't require a throne to ache and to hope, it needs trust, humor, and the stubborn belief that a day of small kindnesses can become a chapter of a larger story. The romance that survives poverty or prejudice is insurance against despair. Proof that love can be earned through daily acts of fidelity. Showing up when the world feels too heavy. Choosing to listen when the other person's voice trembles with fear. And offering forgiveness when a day's long strain leaves sharp words behind. In these stories, love is a craft, refined through time, patience, and a willingness to stay when staying is hardest. So what remains when we debunk these myths? Romance in history isn't a single note played in a grand hall, it is a chorus of common courage. It's the quiet bravery to confess a longing in a letter that might never be read aloud. The stubborn warmth of a shared meal after a long shift. The gentle patience of two people learning to trust again after a betrayal or a fear. It's not the sudden blaze but the steady glow. The way two lives begin to illuminate each other long before any public declaration. And that is where the sweetness lies. In the perseverance that turns fleeting attraction into lasting companionship. In the tenderness that grows through hardship. And in the hopeful belief that love can blossom again even when the world tells us to let go. If you're listening and you've ever felt worlds apart from the idea of a perfect romance, I want you to carry on with this thought. History is full of people who did their best to be kind, to be brave, to be honest about what they needed, and to wait for the right moment to hold on to the one they loved. The myths are tempting because they glamorize love, but the truth is more comforting. Love arrives quietly, sometimes after days of silence or weeks of careful letters. It arrives in the form of trust earned, of shared mornings, and of promises kept in the margins of ordinary life. The stories you carry, whether from a well-thumbed novel or a file of memories in your own heart, are enough to offer a hopeful model. You can rediscover love, nurture it, and believe again that a happy ending isn't a distant myth but a future built with patient hands. So let this be our invitation tonight. To look for romance not only in the grand gestures but in the small, stubborn acts that outlast fear. The conversations that begin with listening and end with a shared dream. And the quiet days that become the foundation for a life worth living together. May you find evidence of love's resilience in your own life too, in the memory of someone who stayed. In the letter you kept for years. In the simple moment when two people chose to begin again. Because history has always whispered this truth, romance can endure, flourish, and heal. Even when the world tells us to hurry or to settle. It is rare, it is real. And it is within reach for those who choose to show up, again and again, with courage and care. So if you found yourself doubting romance in dusty old pages, remember this. The story isn't only bright or tragic. It's a mosaic of small choices, stubborn kindness, and the moments when two people choose to stay. Let these myths be a kinder map, guiding you toward your own quiet, stubborn love. May your days begin again with hope, and your heart stay open to possibility. If you carry this with you, you'll see that love can endure, grow, and finally feel home, steady and true.